Ask not what we all be can do for you. Ask what you can do for we all be.
This is the artivist, R2C2H2, also known as Brother Ron, and welcome everybody to We All Be News and Radio for this special edition of We All Be News and Radio. We have a special guest with us. We are talking about justice for Private First Class LaVena Johnson, exposed to military cover-up. And our featured guest is a very remarkable human being. I'm very humbled by his sacrifice for our country, as known as well as unknown. Here's a guy who dedicated his life to the empowerment of others, especially those in his family. And Dr. Johnson, are you there?
Yes,
Thank you. Welcome to We All Be News and Radio. It's an honor to have you on, sir.
Thank you very much for having us.
I know I wish it was under better circumstances, but this is about seeking justice for your beautiful daughter, Sister LaVena Johnson, correct?
Correct.
And I know I played a couple of local news clips from St. Louis, where she was from, for instance.
Yes.
And I'd like to just get your background on how you feel about everything, about your daughter at first. Let's talk about what type of person was your daughter, Sister LaVena Johnson?
Okay. LaVena was our fourth child. We had three older boys, and then we had LaVena, and we have one younger daughter who will be 21 this month. LaVena was very, very, came into this world just special. She was an extremely disciplined child, never had any problems out of her. She was well liked at school. She was an honor roll student. The most time she was in school. She was an honor roll student. She played the violin. She graduated from high school, and she was a member of the Hawks Sigma Cum Laude Club. She was a patriot in that she loved this country because she always did things like recycle paper, recycle plastic. She gave blood at blood drives at school. She walked marathons. She gave food to and went and fed the hungry. Was just a tremendous person, and she was an extremely brilliant person. Talked about going to college all her life, prepared to go to college. Two things I think changed her life. 9/11 was one. She was 14, I think, when that happened. And she would question me. I mean, it was amazing, the questions that she would ask me about 9/11. And her whole philosophy was she could not understand why people would just kill innocent people. And then I wrote a book that was called Adversaries of God and Man. And in that book, it was a fiction about gargoyles trying to take over, and the Army beat them up. So LaVena had a lot of respect for the Army. In fact, I worked for the Department of the Army for 25 years. I'm retired from them, in addition to being a veteran. And so LaVena knew our family history in terms of the number of people that have been in the military. We've got scores of people that are retired, particularly Army. And she got into her senior year and for some reason just seemed to have a mind change. And just suddenly, without any provocation or anything, she jumped up one day and we were coming home from a basketball game. And she told me, Dad, she said, I got something I want to tell you. And she said, and I want to get your opinion on it. And so I said, well, what is it? And she said, I'm thinking about going into the Army. And I said, absolutely not. And so we had that conversation, and that came out of left field because we hadn't even heard that until she made that implication to me. And from that point on, man, it was all downhill.
So I'm going to ask you this. You know, she like the fourth of, how many kids you end up having, sir?
We had 5.
So she was the fourth of 5?
The fourth, yeah. She was the fourth of 5 kids, yeah.
And y'all had a very extensive family commitment to the military. I mean, a lot of your people, including yourself, have served with distinction in the Army and our armed services, correct?
Correct. In fact, LaVena was, at the very least, she was 3rd-generation Army. Maybe further down than that, but we know for a fact she was at least 3rd generation.
But y'all never thought for a moment that your kids would be interested, that you and your wife's kids would be interested in serving, to try to emulate the family's legacy?
Yeah. With her, see, here's the deal. She had, her grandfather was in the Army when the Army invaded France. Mm-hmm. My brother David Johnson fought in Vietnam, and he was wounded there. So he's a Purple Heart recipient. In fact, he got his Purple Heart was awarded to him by General Westmoreland. My wife's brother, Larry Carter, fought in Vietnam. I had a cousin by the name of George Williams who got killed over there. So that was just immediately around her. Then I've got a cousin, Lonnie, who lives in Atlanta. He's retired Army. I've got a cousin, his brother, that's retired Marine, and his brother and their brothers, I think, retired Navy or Air Force, one or the other. So these are people that she immediately knew about. But we've got scores of family. My family has definitely contributed to this country. And LaVena knew that. In fact, when I started talking against her going in the Army, she used me as an example. She said, hey, didn't you go into the Army out of high school? And I said, yeah, I did. So that's how that started. And I never, in my household, I try to keep a positive household. Mm-hmm. And so I never explained some of the negative experiences that I had when I was in the Army. I just didn't do that around my house. And so those things that happened to me personally, she didn't know about.
But overall, she had you and your wife's blessing, but you also had some misgivings, right? She had y'all blessing to pursue this path.
Well, no, not totally. I was totally opposed to it, and I raised opposition so much she got a little concerned. And then she asked me, and she even said this to me, Dad, she said, I never heard you talk so negative before. And I told her, I said, I just don't think the Army is the place you need to be considering going to college. So then she asked me, she said, well, do you have money to send both Lakeisha and me to school? And I said, yes, I do. She said, well, I want to go to California, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. Mm-hmm. He said, how do you feel about me going to California and going to school? Because, see, she wanted to be a film producer, and she wanted to get out and get a chance to travel and get a little understanding of how things were. And when you come from a real close-knit family like she did, she just looked at this as an opportunity to stand on her own 2 feet. And in addition to that, She called herself helping me out because she told me, I made the statement, if I had to work 2 jobs until her and her sister got out of school, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, no, I don't want you to work 2 jobs. She said, let me help you out. Let me get some of my own money. And so I said, well, here's the problem I've got. They're going to send you to Iraq. And she said, I won't have to go to Iraq. I said, how do you know that? She said, because my recruiter told me that I didn't have to go. So I told her, I said, recruiters lie. They'll lie. They get a little commission. All their job is to get you in the Army. They don't have any control over where you go. He said in my house, and this is how he put it to us, he said the likelihood of her going to Iraq is remote. So she ends up in Iraq. She's there for 6 weeks, and she's raped and murdered.
That's crazy, because I know when you were saying that, I was just thinking about, you know, as I prepared myself to interview you tonight, about how many commercials there were on TV about families having discussions in the kitchen about should Johnny or should Cynthia join the military. And it was like I started to recognize just the brainwashing that was going on. Because you're a psychologist, correct?
Correct.
And you understand the power of propaganda.
Absolutely.
And our government is not ashamed to use propaganda.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, LaVena has never gone against family wishes before, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she, but I'm gonna tell you one thing about her, and this is, she got this from her mom. When her mom makes up her mind she's gonna do something, she's gonna do it. And LaVena has always been that way, man. And that was the only reason why I halfway supported her, was because I knew she had her mind made up. And I'll be honest with you, I thought, well, I know for a fact my baby can do 3 years. And her whole thing was, understand something, I just want to get in there and get that money and get out. While I'm in there, I can do some traveling, you know, and and get a chance to see the world a little bit before I go to school. And when we came home and told her mother, boy, she was devastated. Now, her mother never agreed to her going in. She just conceded pretty much because that's what LaVena seemed to have her mind set on doing. And my wife ended up beating herself up because her thing was, you know, I was her mother and I should have spoke up. And as close as they were, my wife was a little surprised that LaVena would come to me and talk to me about going into Army and not even discuss it as a family, because we always did this. So we went against protocol in a number of ways as far as how we do things in this house, you know.
So I know, has there been like sleepless nights where you, I mean, how do you get over from blaming yourselves, your wife and you? I mean, do y'all ever think about if y'all could have said something, like your wife said she wish she could have said something or spoke out more? I mean, do you blame yourself for what happened to your daughter?
Well, let me put it to you like this. I know, and from the field that I study, normally when people lose a child, it could be some problems internally because, like LaVena looked like me, and her temperament was like her mother. And, you know, people start focusing on things like that. That can cause a riffle in the family. But instead of us going through that, to be honest with you, we both blamed ourselves. Like I said, her whole thing was if she had spoken up as the mother, she felt she would have had more of an impact on her decision. I sit back and I wonder, why did I agree for her to go in the Army without doing my homework first? See, and I'm a detailed person. I mean, I write books and I do research. And I've done a tremendous amount of research since she's been dead. Mm-hmm. But, man, if I'd have done the kind of research I did after the fact, I'd have presented that information to my daughter. I guarantee you she wouldn't have endangered her life. But my whole thing was, you know, it's because when I was in the Army, it was separate. They had wax and wave, and I was in, an Army. And I knew it was co-ed servicing and stuff like that, and I guess I just assumed that things had changed a lot. It wasn't until after she was dead and I started doing my homework, I found out that it's worse now than it was ever ever was before.
What are some of the things you found out? I'm very interested in finding out what are some of the things
that I found out.
Yes, sir.
Okay. For an example, I got a group that I put together when I started this venture about going after them about what happened to my daughter. And so I asked them to get on the website and see what kind of information they can find out about this scenario, because these people were too comfortable with coming to me and saying my daughter committed suicide. And so they brought me, something like 10 other stories about other females. And when you read the circumstances, they were all strange. The characters of the women were all positive. And then when you start talking about black females committing suicide, we found a number of them. And it just didn't seem right. So then later on, we found out that every third female that goes into the Army gets raped. So that's 1 out of 3. That's a horrible statistic.
Wow.
We also found out that every 1 out of 5 males get raped. We found out they had over 1,700 people, females rather, that had reported being raped in the year 2007, and 100 and some odd people got court-martialed under the Code of Military Justice. Now, in civilian life, the statistics are bad, but it's 40%. So in the military, and in fact, there was a lady by the name of Helen Benedict, and she had an article in Miss Magazine back here in October, and she quoted Jane Harmon, who's a congresswoman from California, I believe. She's a Democrat. And she said a woman going to Iraq is more likely to get raped by fellow soldiers than killed by an Iraqi soldier.
Wow.
So this is the kind of stuff that we found out after the fact. And then the arrogance and everything, this is the stuff that I've learned by the way they've treated us. They're very, very arrogant. They act like they can't be touched. They act like they can come to people and tell you what they want you to believe, and you're supposed to accept what they say at face value, and that their arrogance exists to the fact that they think, well, we're part of the government and there isn't nothing you can do about it anyway. And so that's kind of but that's the thing that motivates me the most. But that's the kind of information we found out.
And that's like something, man, I wish that they would try to focus on, because I know just Googling stories about your daughter from the articles, and even I go into an Army website, and how they try to say, well, assaults have really dropped off in the last year or so. Like, they're really suppressing a lot of things. Then to read about some of the women you talked about, I think it was one woman in Afghanistan who basically told her family if she ends up dead to order, an independent investigation into her homicide, not suicide.
Yeah. There's one case, this young lady, and I've talked with her mother.
Mm-hmm.
This young lady name is Tina Priest. Tina Priest got raped by her platoon sergeant, and she reported it to a chaplain. The chaplain sent her to a psychologist in the Army, and he evaluated her and said that she was stable but exhausted, and sent her back to her barracks. And apparently they hadn't planned on doing anything about it, and I understand she kept complaining. So the next thing you know, they found her dead with a gunshot wound to the stomach. And they told the mother, they told Joy Priest, that she committed suicide. So when they did a ballistics test privately, the ballistics test came back saying at 5'2", it was impossible for her to have stuck an M16 rifle in her mouth, because that's the weapon that they said she used, and that's the same one they said my daughter used. They said physically it was impossible for her to have shot herself with an M16 rifle. So they countered, the Army countered, and said she pulled the trigger with her big toe.
Oh.
Then I had another one. I met a lady at, her daughter's name was Deborah Borniak, and she was a lieutenant. And they found her dead. And I understand the St. Charles, she was a St. Charles police person before she went in the Army. And I understand the police officers there went through the paperwork and concluded that she was possibly murdered by a boyfriend. Well, her mother told me that the Army told her that they sent that she wrote a suicide note. So I asked her, I said, well, did you get the suicide note? And she said, no. I said, you didn't get a copy of it? And she said, no. Now, you and I know if she had written a suicide note, they'd have shoved that down her throat quickly.
Right.
But they knew she probably knew her daughter's handwriting, or she was going to get an expert to look at it. And so that woman, and you're talking about people that are just devastated that they even allowed their daughters to even go into the military. And that's just a few of the cases that we found.
I thought it was interesting. You said the Tina Priest lady, she actually was just 5'2", and they said it blew her head off. She blew her head off.
Well, they actually said that Tina Priest shot herself in the stomach.
Okay.
Yeah. Now they said my daughter stuck the M16 rifle in her mouth and pulled the trigger.
And I thought it was your daughter.
Huh?
I thought
it was 5'1".
Now, Tina was 5'2", and your daughter was 5'1". They said,
yeah.
Okay, and how big is an M16 rifle?
40 inches long.
Wow, how much it weighs?
Well, it weighs 9 pounds, something like that. But most of that weapon is barrel. So you're talking about a trigger. If you set it straight up, that's close to the ground. And I've got a picture of my daughter sitting on a cot with her M16 rifle sitting between her legs.
Mm-hmm.
The barrel of that weapon is up around her eyebrows. And so there's no, and here's one other thing that's interesting. The Army said she stuck an M16 rifle in her mouth and pulled the trigger. But they didn't give any kind of dynamics to explain how she did that. They just said she did it. You know, they didn't say she was standing up. Now, there's a bench that's involved. They tried to allude to the fact that she may have sat on a bench, but they never said that. And the reason they couldn't say that is because the witnesses said they found the bench turned upside down on top of her, and someone had lit an accelerant and set it on the bottom of the bench straight up. And so she couldn't have lit a aerosol can, set it on the bottom of the bench, reached over and shot herself with an M16 rifle, put it away from her body because there's no pictures with her rifle near her, and then lit a aerosol can and set it on the bench and pulled it over on her. And that's ridiculous.
You got to have quite an active imagination to do something like that, or be quite gullible. And I just think that it's just weird to me that these same folks expect us to trust them,
yeah,
and they can't tell us the truth about anything.
No, and this would have been a very simple matter. They could have came to me and said, your daughter was murdered. We got the person who did it. We're going to take care of it. If they had done that, there would have been absolutely nothing I could have done about it. But you come to me and you challenge me and you said my daughter committed suicide. And I'm saying, first of all, my daughter wasn't the type. My daughter was a different kind of person than people that I know of that would commit suicide. In addition,
you're a psychologist.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, what I do right now, I do motivational training part-time. I'm retired from the Department of the Army, and I worked in the civilian personnel office. I basically shuffled paper for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've always done counseling. I've always done training. And right now, I do motivational training or part-time. And I'm when it comes to human behavior, man, in my circle, I'm considered an expert. Now, I've read and I write fictional books, and in my books, man, I put lessons in them, that people learn. Even though one of them is a science fiction, it's still got lessons in it, So I'm a pretty decent writer. But I'm a detailed person. But one of the things that really helped me out is that I have two brothers that are important. My brother Joseph Johnson has an associate degree in criminal science. So he basically went through and picked out all the forensics evidence that support that this is a murder. My brother David, who's 29 years law enforcement, he's a detective. And he, a police sergeant, I think, and he's very familiar with that M16 rifle, just like me. And we both pretty much concede that if you stick an M16 rifle in your mouth, you're going to either lose half of your face or you're going to lose half of your head. And so to say that she stuck a M16 rifle in her mouth and she's got a hole in her head that's on the left side of her head. Now, if you can imagine her hairline, then go up to the top of her head and move forward to the frontal lobe. They've got the hair peeled back, and the hole on top of her head is so small you can actually stick a pencil down in it. So whoever shot her with a handgun, and they stood over her when they did it. And there are 3 principal people in the military that carry hand revolvers. That's military police, maybe your medical people, and you got officers that carry them. And if I had to choose between those 3 people, this is somebody with some rank and some privilege, and people are sacrificing their careers to protect a cold-blooded murderer and the people who helped him out, because it was more than one, and we can prove that.
We got a caller, area code 901. Y'all on the air?
Hey,
Hello?
Brother Ron.
Hey, Brother Morris.
Hey, Brother Ron. Hey, Dr. Johnson, how are you?
How you doing?
Pretty good. Listen, I my condolences go out to you and your family, and I was telling Brother Ron earlier that I felt kind of bad that I'm just now finding out about this case probably in the last 5 or 6 months, and it's been going on for going on 4 years. Almost 4 years. So that's a sad commentary on the media, but that's nothing surprising. But as a person who stood watching the Navy, I carried an M16, and I don't see that happening. Yeah, there's just no way that could have happened like that.
Yeah, I'm about 5'10", and I would have a hard time sticking an M16 rifle in my mouth and pulling the trigger. But they didn't even explain how she did it, just that she did, And you got forensics people that go and do forensic. I watch CSI. Those people are detailed. You're going to send me, here's what happened. They actually sent me black and white Xerox copies of everything. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, you going to tell me, go ahead. What are you going to say?
No, you go ahead. You go ahead and finish.
Now, when I open up a package and I see black and white Xerox copies, what the heck do you think I was going to think then? If I wasn't thinking that it was a cover-up when I first heard it, I sure as heck would have thought it then, because if you send me colored pictures, I can see stuff. So what happened was, and this is, somebody in there had some compassion for us. I'm just going to tell it like it is, because they put a picture of a CD-ROM in there and also a picture of my daughter's vaginal area. Now, when we pulled the picture of her vaginal area and looked at it, it was so messed up, you couldn't even see what was going on with it, because my brother said they airbrushed the pictures. There was no gloss to them, nothing like that. But we could tell there was something wrong there. And at first we theorized that maybe somebody may have jammed something up in her, so we thought this was just a hate crime, And then there was a picture of a CD-ROM in there. So I wrote the Army twice and asked them, how come I can't get a copy of this CD-ROM, because I knew it was going to be in color. They wrote me back the first time and told me that I wasn't entitled to it. I wrote them back and I said I am entitled to it because my daughter's dead, I'm next of kin, and I'm entitled to anything that pertains to her that's got her name on it, etc. They wrote me back and they said there were names on the CD-ROM and they have to protect those people's rights. I wrote them back and I said if they are principal people in my daughter's death, I'm entitled to their names according to the Privacy Act. They wrote me back and told me to get in contact with their legal department. So instead of doing that, I went to Congressman Lacy Clay and put in a Freedom of Information Act and asked him to get that CD-ROM for me, and he did.
Wow. Well, Dr. Johnson, with my experience in the Navy, one thing that I do know, when there's an incident of any kind, because there was a couple of deaths in my, when I was in the Navy, when I was on a ship, and when I was at a squadron, and the first thing that they do, they have what is called a public affairs officer, and they make sure that they make everybody clam up. Nobody's allowed to talk to the press. Nobody's allowed to talk to anybody, because they have Navy Investigative Service that handles that handles their really serious cases, and so they don't allow you to talk to anybody. So I already know. I'll put it like this: I deeply suspect what is going on, and the thing about the military is that they try to cover up in the most outrageous ways, and that's something that, like I was telling Brother Ron, there's a lot of incompetence in the military, and people just don't believe it, but it is. It's a lot of incompetence.
You got people in there right now, man, that's got a whole lot of rank and everything else. They couldn't make it in civilian life. They really couldn't. Yep, and you're absolutely correct. But in my case, you got criminal investigators that walked the grid, took pictures of blood all over the place, then started walking around asking suicide questions. So they were ordered not to pursue their evidence, but to see if they could establish a suicide. And here's how you know that. They came to me at 7:30 in the morning of the 19th of July in 2005 and said my daughter died of a self-inflicted wound. Now, you would have thought they would have investigated or did something first, before they came with that, because that's a serious allegation. And not only that, they sent a staff sergeant from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and you're not going to tell me it's protocol to send a E6 to a family to tell them that their daughter's dead. When my cousin George got killed in Vietnam, they sent a staff car with some officers in it, public affairs and all those people.
Right, and I was surprised. I watched one of your interviews, and that's one of the things that kind of sent a little alarm off, because they don't usually send enlisted men to as grief officers, because in the Navy that's what we have, grief officers.
Yeah.
We had officers that were, that was part of their duties as part of their collateral duties as a grief officer, to go and inform a family that someone has someone is deceased. So that did catch me off guard. Well, Dr. Johnson, I got involved with the network. Someone sent me an email, and to tell you the truth, within the last probably 3 weeks to a month, I've really learned a lot about the case that I didn't know before, because there's basically no mainstream coverage of it.
That is correct.
And so I see that there's been a lot of coverage in St. Louis, in the St. Louis area, and I do see you have Senator Claire McCaskill, as seems like she's trying to do something for you. So I hope that you can continue to build momentum. I certainly will, try to do what I can as a person here in Memphis, because that really burns me up.
And it's
that they're handling this way.
Yeah. Well, here's what we've got. We had 60 Minutes that committed themselves to us. The executive producer flew down here and talked to my wife and me, and a member of my group. He asked me to give him some telephone numbers of the people that were in LaVena's unit, and I gave them. I faxed those to him the next day. He called me within 45 minutes and told me he had talked to 17 people who said that they thought LaVena was murdered. 17 people. And one person said the person that had murdered LaVena had already been admonished for what he did, but they was covering for him. Now, that man ended up getting fired from CBS. Now, let me break this down to you. Essence Magazine did an article on my daughter, and this was in 2006. It was June, I believe. Well, that article was supposed to have been in the February issue. But the news media people, what they do, they call the Army because they want to get a comment from the Army before they print their article. Well, what they do when they call the Army, they put the Army on alert that they're interested in the story. So the Essence Magazine people actually got threatened by the Army. And the Army told them if they printed the story on my daughter, they was going to pull their money out of that magazine.
Oh,
so they picked they came to a compromise in that the month that LaVena's story was in there, they didn't advertise. Now that's to show you how trivial-minded those people are. So Essence did a half a page, but then they messed the executive producer must have got angry, and one of the guys that was maintaining our website got an email that one of the people that worked for Essence Magazine was going around to the journalist schools and telling people that our story should be at the national level, but the reason it's not making it to the national level is advertising dollars. Now, I've had someone in my group to research that, and this is what we found out, just to give you an idea of why this story is not hitting national news media. You got CBS and NBC, and it looks as if they're owned by Westinghouse. Westinghouse have these multi-million-dollar contracts with the military. So they are not going to do this story and have the military talking about pulling money out of their news source, because when you start talking about multi-million dollars, that's a lot of money. And so that's the main reason why this story is not hitting major networks. Anybody that advertises about the military, man, that's big bucks, and those people do not want to sacrifice those dollars. So that's why this story isn't making the national media. But thank God for the website, because the website is getting spread out anyway.
You know, I always tell people, I said, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Brother Ron.
I always tell people that the revolution won't be televised, but it will be podcast and blogged. That's my saying. Also, NBC, also General Electric, they own NBC. I mean, all these folks are making money out the military industry complex.
Yep.
And I just wondered, we was in, Brother Morris and I was at the inauguration, and these corporate heads come up, well, the dream has been achieved. We have won. And we did overcome. But if Dr. King was alive today, he said all you did was put brown face on top of empire.
Yep.
You still spend more money on wars, on death machines than you do on agencies and organizations to help empower poor people, working class people, to properly educate our kids because they can have critical thinking skills. Because, you look at some of the armed services, they have lowered their standards. You know how they say, well, we got folks coming out of West Point and all this stuff, but what's the majority of these people coming from that are enlisted in the service? A lot of them doing it because they got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
They can't get a job. They can't go to school. Or they can go to prison.
That was one of the reasons why I ended up in the military many years ago, because of economic situation, and it was either the military or probably another institution. Well, probably that wouldn't have been so great.
Yeah, I got you.
But be that as it may, and it's an institution. Like anything else, you have some people in there that are some good people, but it is what it is. It's like I said, when something happened, the first thing that they would say, don't talk to anybody. Don't talk to the press. Don't talk to don't talk to anybody. And that's how it is. And that's why it's like cops. It's like when a cop does something and the other cops clam up, it's a lot like that, but on a larger scale. And
I had people.
But,
I was going to say. Go ahead. I'm going to say this, just what you just said. I had a number of people that kept recommending that I see the movie called The General's Daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so many people. I mean, it was amazing, man, how many people said that to me. So I had somebody who actually brought it to me, and I actually sat down and watched it. And I cracked up, man, when Fowler, he was the general's aide.
The general, right. Clarence Williams III,
Yeah, and when he said to Brennan, who was the CID person, he said, before you arrest somebody, notify me. We don't want outside people arresting our people. And he said, remember when you do things, don't forget the Army, because there are 3 ways of doing things: the right way, the wrong way, and the Army way. I laughed when I heard that, because that was the same baloney that they fed me when I was in basic training. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I heard that, I said to myself, these people are crazy, because everybody knows there's right and there's wrong. But they've got another system of wrong that they justify. It's not right. They just justify it as being right. And that's what that means, and that's what you just said.
Right, and well, and to get to just to chime in a little bit, and this all ties in together. It's a wonderful thing that Barack Obama is the president. I was there. It was a wonderful occasion, but back to reality. I mean, a brother got shot in the back at a train station in Oakland. So I mean, it doesn't it doesn't take away the reality of a system that's been in place and people's attitudes that have been in place. This country has a history of taking advantage of African American women, and so it hasn't stopped. It's still going on. They're not very kind to women in general, but especially African American women, because from a historical standpoint, and I know you know better than I, Dr. Johnson, that they were able to take liberties. This was a society that was able to take liberties with African American women at will. And some people still have ingrained attitudes toward African American women, and we haven't helped as African American men in a lot of ways. We've helped to exploit them to the point where they're looked at as someone to have sex with and take advantage of, and not look at as a whole person. I was in the military. I know how women are treated in some instances, and it's probably come a long way, but it got a long way to go.
That's true.
Because I've been out for a while. I've been out for a long time, but it just kind of will tell you. I certainly don't want to harp on that, Dr. Johnson. I just really wanted to call in. Ron's a friend of mine, and I love his show. I love what he's doing, and I just wanted to have a chance to speak with you and just to say to you that if there's anything that I can do, Ron has my personal information, and if there's anything that you think that I would be able to help you with, by all means, let me know.
Okay. All right.
Because I don't have any children myself, but I have nieces, and some younger than her, and some around her age or a little older, and if somebody doesn't say something, then they're just gonna keep being able to get away with it, and I'm really, like Ron said, I'm really glad that we have the internet now, because you can't just get away with things the way you used to when you just had those three or four networks and those newspapers.
That is true.
You know, so
that is
it's
true.
So I'm going to sign on off, but like I said, I just wanted to speak with you, and I really admire your courage and your wife's courage and your family, and you know, I know that you're going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, that's my intention.
Because I believe the truth will prevail.
Yeah, I do. I do too.
And but it's probably gonna be rough. But
yeah, I know.
But I believe that you will vindicate your daughter.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot.
No, bro, Morris, thanks.
Oh, all right. Good. I'll catch up with you, Ron.
All right, bro, Morris. Thanks a lot.
Dr. Johnson.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Oh, Dr. Johnson, I'd like to just add, we got a chat room that's very busy as well. Brother Black Talk Radio, Brother Scotty, thanks a lot, because he's the guy that really got this moving as far as get a lot of us hosts on board to try to do right. And like you said, there's only two things, there's right way and the wrong way. There's no Army way. There's no other way but right or wrong.
Yep.
And he wanted me to ask you, are you aware that the Pentagon is setting up a sexual predator database? And what do you think about it?
What has happened, and we went up to Washington, my wife and me, and we were escorted by Colonel Ann Wright. And we did that in April of last year. When we got up there, Jane Harmon and people like that have been advocating about abuse of women in the military, and they obviously have been talking about this issue for years.
Right.
Our wife, I'll be honest with you, boy, she fussed while she was up there, because her thing was, hey, how come we didn't know this stuff was going on? Because if you had told us, and if it was made public that this stuff was going on, then we could have fed our daughter some more information, and I'm sure she wouldn't have gone into the Army and jeopardized her life like she did.
Mm-hmm.
We went back up there in July, and what happened when we were there was this. We've talked with several different Congress people. We took some brochure up there, and we talked to people about getting a congressional hearing. And at the same time, what was going on, you had the Governmental Reform Committee that was fussing at the Army for lying about Pat Tillman, because they never got over being lied to about that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So while we were there, they did a report admonishing the Army for what they did. And included in that report was a concept that they may have lied to us as well. After that, we've had several Congress people to advocate to Congress that we have a congressional hearing so we can get to the bottom of what happened to LaVena and 9 other females, because this is a pattern. And most of the people, when they advocate a hearing, they talk about our daughter and Tina Priest, because those are the two that I made really, really, really vocal about, okay? Now, in July and August, they had closed sessions in Congress. My daughter and Tina Priest's name came up during both sessions. They were supposed to have had an open session in September. What they did, they postponed it until February 2009, this month, because they didn't want it to be an issue right at election time. Well, what happened to us was we picked up momentum, if you will, through the black media, with a few whites that were kicked in. We had my daughter was on the front page of Final Call. She was on the front page of L.A. Weekly, you know. And so when those things kind of start happening, and we're talking about after 3 years, I think the Army kind of realized I'm not going away. And since I'm not going away, there are a lot of other people who are suffering the same thing that are not going away. So they are forced in a position to do something. But what they're trying to do, so you have to understand, too, they are good when it comes to appealing to the public. They're experts at it. That's how they get our kids in there.
Right.
And right when we were getting this momentum going about murder, they came out and talked about the suicides of the people in the Army. And that's to divert the public's attention in a different direction altogether. And CBS was the one that helped them out with it.
Yeah, well, hey,
Absolutely.
That makes sense. I asked you, too, about the suicide rate. Because you're a psychologist and also you work closely with the military. I mean, like, I know men and women are not the same. I mean, we're human beings, but we don't think the same.
Yeah.
We got a different way of approaching things. Like, what would be the number one way for women to, quote-unquote, kill themselves or commit suicide in the military as well as in civilian life? Is there any difference?
Well, let me put it to you like this. When it comes to using weapons, women seldom do.
Okay.
They take pills. They might OD. They might even slice some wrists. But they ain't sticking no gun in their mouth, and they ain't sticking no gun upside their head.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you start talking about males, particularly white males, a weapon of choice is not unusual in those cases. That they will shoot, you know. And I guarantee you, if you go back to history and you go through the Great Depression and you go back to 1929, well, the Depression started in 1929.
Yes, sir.
In 1933, the stock market bottomed out. You had 20,000 people that committed suicide. My guess would be jumping off of roofs and doing stuff like that, and my guess would be if you did a protocol tally of who the major culprit was, I guarantee you white males would top the list. So if that's their mentality, that's why they will come and tell you and me that our daughters committed suicide, and they know good and well that she ain't jumped on no martyr, so they'll say with an M16 rifle. And the moment they say that, boy, you know it's baloney, because as a rule, women don't use weapons, and black women, more so than anything else, don't just jump up and commit suicide. Some boy make them mad. They might go shoot that dude,
right,
but they ain't going to get that upset that they're going to commit suicide.
They'll do a Frankie and Johnny before a suicide. Huh?
Yeah. So that's what statistics show. And even when the Army came out with these statistics about suicides, they even admitted that the culprit mostly were white males, and they claimed the reason is because the availability of the M16 rifle.
The weapon
So
of choice.
they pretty much admitted that.
I think I got Brother Morris going to pipe in. Brother Morris, that's you?
Oh, I was just listening, Ron, and the reason is I didn't, I thought if I didn't press 1 that I could just listen. I wasn't trying to call back in. I can't. There's something wrong with the with your audio on the net.
Okay,
and,
I think it's probably the Pentagon or somebody or Homeland Security.
Right, because I can't. There's a lot of static. It's been ever since the show started. And I've never seen that before on your show. All the times I've been listening, you don't get me started. I'll start.
Right.
I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna help you out.
Yeah, Dr. Go ahead, tell us.
I'm gonna help you out. Go to www.militarycorruption.com.
Okay.
Okay.
Now watch this. I had a guy as a retired major call me up, and about 4 or 5 months ago, and he said he wanted to help me. I didn't hear from. Well, he started downing Obama, so I stayed away from him. Well, my whole point was, what the hell did Obama have to do with my daughter getting killed in the Army? So I didn't.
Right.
But what he did, he put a story on his website, and it was about my daughter's death. So he called me up a couple of Sundays ago, and was telling me that he had looked into it and told me that her story was on his website. So I put www.militarycorruption in my computer, corruption.com in my computer. This screen popped up, and it said, women go in the Army to find husbands. Sign up and get a $40,000 bonus. All this crap. So he called me back and said, did you see your daughter's story on there? So I said, no, man, this is a Army propaganda page. And he said, what are you talking about? So I read what was on there. So he said, you must have put the wrong address in there. So he asked me to delete it, and I did, and I put it back in there, and the same page popped up. So he laughed. He said, man, they got a tracking device on your computer. You know, but that's dumb, because all I did was to call a couple of people and tell them to go on the website, and they went on the website, and there's the story about my daughter, just like he said. Well, while we were talking, my phone popped off. Well, he called me back, and he said, I wonder what that is. I said, my phone's tapped. He said, you're kidding me. And I said, man, there's been 5 or 6 times I've been talking about this conversation, and the phone just go dead. So, but that's silly, because.
Well, I want you guys to listen to how this sounds from my laptop.
Like
can you hear that?
Like you need a digital thing, like they were talking about.
And Brother Ron, honestly, I just called in to listen because I couldn't hear the rest of the interview, and so I wasn't trying to call and call back in and talk. I was just trying to call back in and listen, and so I've never seen that happen before. All the times that I've listened to your show, I've never seen that before.
Well, it doesn't surprise me one bit.
Well, I'm not surprised either, because I believe that they'll do anything, because they've shown in the past that they are capable of doing just about anything.
Yep.
So I don't put anything past them. So
you know what's surprising when we talk about this? People don't even know of the existence of the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. People know about the DIA. They don't know nothing about the DIA. When I talk to a personal professor, I say, what is the Federal Reserve? We don't know. Why you don't know? Is that something to benefit the American people? It surprises me how many people don't know.
Yeah.
You talking about some of the military officers, how really they are truly incompetent, that they truly embody the Peter principle.
Yep, that's true.
How so many people get by so much little. Like, it's really true. They say it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
That's true.
Well, the CIA is modeled after the Gestapo.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're puppets. They're puppets. And they're puppets, and I had a retired colonel that talked to me, and he didn't have no confidence in them. He said they are one step above the military police. And he gave me this advice. He said, I'm going to tell you right now, man. He said, I hope you're not sitting back thinking that CID is going to try to solve your daughter's murder. He said, because they're not. And as it turned out, guess what? He's right.
Now, what can we do? You know what? My problem with black people is like we don't understand we're in an infantile state of mind. Not all of us, but a lot of us are. Where there's like we're going to protest, we're going to go down to the city hall and get a permit. Now, how is that a protest if you asking for permission to protest?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure that out. Dr. King, I went to a screening of an HBO documentary film last night. It was talking about the witness from Room 306. You had some of the people that were down there in Memphis who were the key organizers that brought Dr. King basically to his death.
Right.
And to understand why he was there, he basically got killed, as one of the people said in the movie, to try to give some garbage workers a 10-cent raise.
Yep.
That is too much of a price to pay, but 40 years later, talking to some of them veterans, some garbage workers, a lot of them still working as garbage men, they still don't have the benefits that Dr. King came to Memphis for.
Yes.
So what was accomplished? Well, I talked to a friend of mine who does business in Selma, and a lot of things were made during the presidential campaign. The Hillary and Barack and all them came down to Selma, Alabama to reenact the Edmund Pettus Bridge Bloody Sunday thing. But to talk to people in Selma, Alabama, black folks, if you go into Selma right now, that bridge is rusted. It needs repair. It needs painting. The black folks in Selma are economically oppressed, repressed, and depressed. And they'll tell you that the reason why it's like that is because the white folks got all the money. Now, What was Dr. King saying in his last speech? He said we got to get economic wealth redistribution.
Yep.
We got to empower. There should be no poor people in America. There should be nobody wonderful in anything. If we could spend $500,000 to blow somebody else in Vietnam, but only spend $5,000 for the entire year on the poor people campaign for one individual, for the Great Society campaign, we're dying a spiritual death. We're dying slow. This country was built on genocide.
Yeah.
Those Wall Street corporations, they were built off of slavery.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's all about priorities, and instead of you know, Dr. Johnson's daughter LaVena being a national symbol, that should be an outrage by all women and men alike in this country, that at the outrage of how something like that could happen. But instead, it's American Idol and you know, Maury, you know, who my baby daddy, you know, all this buffoonishness, Jerry Springer and everything. And it's sad to say, but the reason why I think so many things can get pulled over on American people is because they allow their brains to turn to mush by you know, they're not informed. You know, they watch things that distract them from reality instead of being informed about what's exactly going on around them.
Yep.
And so, you know, this is it's a sad commentary, Brother Ron. You know, not to get too off base from Dr. Johnson's interview here, but right there in D.C., you know, once you get outside the Capitol and get away from the White House, you know what you see. Brothers standing around, you know, broken down stuff, same stuff. You might as well be in Memphis. That's you know, right. you might as well be in Orange Mound, you know, or Fraser, or you know,
St. Louis.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing, and that's the capital of the United States.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it shows you where the priorities are, you know, and so that's it. You know, I like I said, I admire Dr. Johnson and what he is doing, because what Dr. Johnson is doing is something that Dr. King would do, and did do. Because see, lots of times we think that we're powerless because, you know, we're just an ordinary person, and you know, Dr. King said that we all could serve, and we all could do something, you know, and so, you know, that is something that I never have forgotten, you know, since being a little boy. And so I just don't believe in, there's some things that you may not be able to do anything about. You know, you can't stop an electric company from overcharging folks. You know, you probably could get them to stop for a while, but they just start up again. But there are some things that you can do. And, you know, people, it bothers me when people say that, you know, you can't change the world. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Because people have shown that you can.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Emmett Till's mother did, she made sure that casket was open.
Yeah.
She didn't want that casket closed.
Yeah.
She wanted it open.
Yeah. They tried
so the whole world
to close our casket.
Mm.
Yeah,
but you don't just go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. John. Go ahead.
Yeah, they wanted us to have a closed casket.
Right.
Yeah, but they didn't want us to look over that body.
Mm-hmm.
But not only did I have the casket open, I looked the body over myself. And that's how I knew how she died. I saw that bullet hole in her head, you know, and in fact, I went to the news media the next day, and I said, my daughter's got a bullet hole on the left side of her head, and she's right-handed.
Mm.
And then the Army counter said, yeah, but what you saw was an exit wound from her sticking an M16 rifle in her mouth.
That's impossible.
The moment they told me that, I said, that's crap. And I even asked them, I said, did my daughter get raped? And the guy said, I didn't do a rape kit. And I said, you call my house and you tell me my daughter killed herself under distress, and you didn't check to see if she had been raped. Now, when he talked to me on the phone, he said he didn't do it because there was no sign of a struggle. Now, when we were up in Washington, he said her clothes were straight. And he sounded like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
But my whole point was, you know, I got a picture of her vaginal area, and I'm going to tell you, it's tore all to hell. The lip is swollen on one side. There are rips all in it. And then somebody poured something in her like lye to destroy DNA evidence, and it's hanging all out of her. And they got a picture of it, and I got it.
We got area code 704 on the air. 704?
Oh,
704?
yes, how you doing? Yeah, can you hear me?
This is Brother Scotty.
Yes, it is. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, man, Brother Black Talk? What's up? Welcome to We All Be.
Thank you. How you doing, Dr. Johnson? Good to hear you.
Hey, Scotty,
again.
how you doing, man?
I'm kind of hot right now. I'm kind of angry, and because I mean, like what y'all was talking about earlier about the media, and you know, let me just go ahead and spit it out. Did y'all see that Super Bowl commercial where they had I can't think of the actor's name, but it was a commercial for Hulu. You know, when they were talking about how television turns your brain into mush. You know,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Dr. Johnson, a couple of days ago, I sent you a suggestion to write Oprah because Oprah was looking for guests. I'm on her website right now. She was looking for guests for her show, and one of the topics was, do you know a female military hero who has served in the past or who has served in the present? And because of all the things you mentioned in the beginning of the show when you were talking about your daughter and how against your advice she went in the military anyway, you know, her sense of duty and her patriotism to this country and how she felt about the innocent life lost on 9/11. Now, I mean, that was just a couple of days ago I saw that hot topic on Oprah Winfrey's website. And now I had went to her website because I wanted to post some stuff on another website asking other people to write Oprah about it. And the topic is gone now. It's totally gone. Now they're asking, do you know a hero in these economic times?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what has happened is, you know, you guys are experiencing just what I'm going through. They don't want this topic out there, you know, and so apparently they're working hard to try to sabotage every effort. They've already shut down the national media. They've done that. And so now the website has been opened and the information's out there, and so they're working hard to see if they can shut that down.
Well, they're not going to shut us down. And I'm going to tell you, I posted, you know, this show right now was posted on the Black Talk Radio Network, and I made a blog post about it. And it was a top post on the Widget Box Network, which gets close to 30,000 views per day. You know, and I had another website plugged into it. So the story is making its way around the internet. But I'm just so upset because, you know, people like Oprah Winfrey, then you got Michael Baisden. He has a site, a NING site, I See Color, okay? And I posted several stories. He has hundreds of thousands. I think he got like over 100,000 members on that site. You know, that site isn't that old. And I posted, you know, the show I did with you and some other articles and videos about this case. And I posted this show in there today. And so I was just going through his blogs, the whole blog section to see what shows were featured in this or that. You know, not once did anybody on that site, administrator at that site, thought to feature the story I posted about LaVena Johnson. But you'll see stuff featured about should you lose your job over smoking pot? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just mindless stuff, And I was watching public television tonight, and Strength, I think it was called Strength in Selma, but they were showing some of those old videos, and this is what came to my mind. This is what came to my mind. When you can't have something, you value it, and I'm talking about the vote. When we couldn't vote, people wanted to vote. But now that we do have the right to vote, and we're not exercising our political power that they fought so hard. So it's like once you get it, it's no longer valuable. And so, you know, I do want to be encouraged. That is why we started the Black Talk Media Project, trying to bring together great people like the host that's hosting this show right now and other people who talk about serious issues. You know, I keep up with media trends through all the publications that's out there, And we're laying the groundwork right now. I got people contacting me. We're laying the groundwork because most people are starting to turn to the internet. And we doing television, we doing these radio shows, and so I just, you know, it may seem like, you know, it's not many of us who care, but it's a lot of us who actually do care. And so it's just that they have no place to meet at.
Right. Well, Scotty, I did. You doing? I've never met you, but I did join your network. Probably about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. I haven't really participated very much. Been on the go, but I plan to, and I'm glad. Matter of fact, I'm glad that you called in. I was hanging around because I do appreciate what you're doing. Just like I tell Brother Ron, I appreciate you guys being able to get out there because, see, I think that the internet is going to be the next target because there's too much information that's getting out to people that they don't want to get out because, you guys don't have to worry about no sponsors or worrying about massaging somebody's reputation and things like that. You can pretty much say what you want to say and tell it like it is, and I'm just wondering how long before, the stormtroopers come, but I guess we'll deal with that when the time comes.
Well, they've already tried it,
that's right.
And it's been beat back before. And so that's why it's important that we safeguard our rights and stuff. And so, I just be encouraged, and like I said, Dr. Johnson, have you heard anything about if they're going to have any congressional hearings this month?
Okay, I haven't. They had one on the 19th, I think, of July, but the issue they'll address rapes in the military, but they seem frightened to escalate it up to the actual rape and murders. So they look like they're cutting it off at the rapes. But they'd had one back, I think it's like the 19th of January. But I haven't heard about the one they postponed from September. And I was under the impression that's supposed to be sometime this month. And I was also under the impression that there was going to be an open session. But I haven't heard anything yet.
You know, it's interesting. I know we brought up Emmett Till, and all this stuff is related because, justice denied is justice delayed, and fate means never, and things of that nature. But you think about the Emmett Till case, and the reason why it was known because Johnson, who founded Judge and Ebony, took the chance. He put their photograph in his media outlet, and that what got the world set on fire. You look at the Montgomery bus boycotts. It was the black radio. It was community radio. They were passing along coded messages to the people to let them know about what was the logistics of the of the boycott. Yeah. Dr. King talked about that in Atlanta at a disc jockey convention. He said, if it wasn't for that black community radio, we wouldn't have had no successful boycott. It's all about disseminating information, but when your people are compromised, like, the fact that you can't go to an Essence, or there is no such thing, or the black press, like even in Detroit, when Kwame Kilpatrick was going through that trouble with the text messages, it was the white press, the Detroit Free Press, that broke that story. Because black folks said, well, his mom is this powerful congressional woman, this powerful figure. All of this stuff, we got this, we worship the wrong things. We idolize the wrong stuff. But we always, in this country, have been the innovative, independent journalists. Whether it's been Frederick Douglass, whether it's been I.W. Wells Barnett reporting about the lynchings. They kicked it out the South for reporting about what's going on as far as lynching. Well, not because they were sleeping with white women, because they want you to keep you in your place. Yeah. They don't want you to vote. They don't want you to own no successful businesses. And that's every generational thing. That's every generation in America. They don't want us to have stuff. Me and my mom, we just came from the VA, Department of Veteran Affairs in Nashville. My grandfather had sacrificed his life. He was like Dr. Johnson, some of your people. He was involved in the D-Day Normandy invasion. He was in the Red Ball Express. But the Army wrecked his life. They destroyed his life when he was in his 20s. And, later I understand why he had to drink. He never had any type of treatment. He was always in pain. Yeah. Since he got hurt in World War II, they demoted him for messing around with a white girl. He was called a boy, not by a white man when he first got home. in Mississippi, but by a black Pullman porter, an old black Pullman porter called my boy in full uniform. I mean, you just think about, you know, all the things he had to do. I mean, he didn't get 100% disabled, although he was 100% disabled. He didn't start getting disability payments in 1958. World War II ended in 1945.
Yeah,
right.
So this is stuff that our people got to deal with on top of all the other, you know, BS that they want to throw at us. And they said, we're not patriotic. You look at Reverend Wright. This guy, he wanted to join the Marines. He decided on his own to join the Navy. He saved President Johnson's life. But yet he's not patriotic because he tells it like it is.
yeah,
This is America. It's a check that's been bounced for too many generations.
yeah.
You know, so they bounced
you know,
too many generations.
Right. Well, you know, Brother Ron, you're exactly right about and just to touch on the Emmett Till story and see the reason why that strikes a chord with me is because, first of all, I was born 4 or 5 years after Emmett Till was murdered, and how I found out about it was because John H. Johnson published that story every single year since it happened, and that's why I was able to find out about it as a at 13 and 14 years old, because of that article being repeated. And so I'm sure I would have found out about it sooner or later, but I doubt I would have found out about it at that time without Ebony Magazine and Jet.
I've had white people ask me, have Ebony done a story on your daughter? And I said, no. Have Jet done a story on your daughter? And I said, no. Have you contacted them? I said, yes. We've got people in. I got a journalist that's on my staff. She done contacted all of them. She actually talked with Oprah's executive producer and sent him the information and never heard from him again.
Wow. So y'all had talked to Oprah before?
We hadn't talked to her.
You know, people handlers.
But
but they're producers.
Yeah, they're a producer. But he never got back with her.
See, that just makes me angry. Because, I mean, I did write them about LaVena. And, you know, and I was going back to the site. And so I could, put something else out there and get other people to write, and it's gone. The topic is gone.
Right. And my publisher is a female, and she is very, very compassionate about our story. And I talked to her last week, and she told me she emailed Oprah about our story and they didn't respond back to her.
Has anybody from the foreign press? I mean, how you look at the Agenda 6? Go ahead. That was Brother Scotty?
Yes.
Scotty?
Yeah,
I was saying about the Agenda 6, what happened with that story was it was dead in the water for several months over here, but it was the foreign press, like people from Spain and Italy, that really picked it up. You know, have you got any calls or any emails from people in the foreign press who are interested in telling the story?
My daughter's story is in Australia. Mm-hmm. My daughter's story is in New Zealand. My daughter's story is in the United Kingdom. My daughter's story is in Japan. Yeah, it's gotten out there. And we had the people from Australia to actually come to my house and interview us.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, it's out there in the international scene.
Dr. Johnson, do you think now what I'm thinking, and that Brother Ron and Scotty might be able to better accurately answer this because you guys are more media savvy than I am, but do you think because John H. Johnson has passed away and a lot of the people that he had as his staff has probably have passed away too, that this is the reason why maybe they're not taking that story on?
I don't know, but then what's the purpose in their existence?
Right.
If they're not going to carry on the legacy of the person who started it, then what's the point?
Right. It's more like, I think it's like a different generation now, you know, with him passing away. But I think, like Dr. Johnson, you touched on it earlier, and you touched on it when you was on my show about the money thing, the advertisement. You know, that's what it's all about. You know what this country is ruled by, the mighty, mighty dollar, even though it ain't looking too mighty right now. But, you know, I think that's what's going on, is that they don't want to lose those advertisement dollars from the Pentagon or contracts that their parent companies might own. And so that's what I'm saying. You know, thank God for internet radio. Thank God for blogs. We don't have to depend on them. And the way, you know, that's one of the reasons we set up as a nonprofit, the Black Talk Media Project. And those members, I'm working on my software for my email newsletter, but I sent out some email newsletters, and I did a show last Sunday talking about how we can fund ourselves just with online shopping. I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying, recycling dollars like they used to do in the old days back in the black community before segregation. So what I'm trying to say is we don't want to be dependent on advertisement revenue or corporate dollars or even grants, even though we're applying for a grant right now to promote internet safety. But we don't even want to be dependent on grants, because, you know what I'm saying, we might get used to getting, we know this funding or this grant is coming in from this foundation annually, but, you know, they may try to do the same thing. We don't want to be dependent on anything, and we're trying to set up, you know, economic mechanism to where, you know, we can support ourselves.
Yeah, Scotty, just on that note that you just said about the advertising dollars, my wife went to a dentist's office back here last week, and she came home all upset. And I asked, so we sat down, and I said, well, what's up? She said, when I was in the doctor's office, I picked up Ebony magazine. She said, and John, almost every page I looked at had advertisement in there about the Army. I said, you're kidding me. She said, Ebony magazine. She said, it made me sick. She said, I put it down. You know? And so that's exactly what you just said. And that's the problem.
Yes, it's true. And I think I even seen some military commercials the night of the Super Bowl. I think I seen a Marine commercial, and they put the black dude out front. You know, I was like, I get that subliminal message you're sending there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And here's something else. They hadn't had a female commercial in the Army, not ever. All of a sudden, this little country girl is signing up. And when her father sat there and said, and when she said she was going in the Army, I had a lump in my chest. And I was thinking when he said that, good for you, because I had a lump in my butt and one in my stomach when my daughter was talking about going. And it's grown since she got in there and got raped and murdered. So they hadn't even done a female commercial until we started raising hell about our daughters being raped and murdered. Now, all of a sudden, they going to do a show, and you know, and she was a country girl, and now I'm so proud of her. I was proud of my daughter before she even went in the Army. I didn't have to wait for her to do that.
That's right. I know that's right.
Yeah, my daughter just turned 18. She's sitting right here. She just got accepted to Johnson C. University, but she's still waiting to hear back from some other colleges. And, you know, we started getting calls from the recruiter. And and it was a black woman recruiter. And I said, this is her father. What do you want with my daughter? She was 17 at the time. Well, she filled out something online that she might be interested in the Army. And I said, no, she ain't interested in the Army. I said, I don't know what she did online or how you got our number, but do not call back. That woman tried to argue with me. Well, don't she get to make up her mind and all that? I said, look,
quota time. It was quota time, Scotty.
Yeah.
It was quota time.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's right and wrong, though. It's right and wrong. Now, her being a black female, I'm sure she know how it is for females in the military. You know? Yeah. And that might be the reason why a lot of these recruiters is killing themselves.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Well, you know, the military the military, one of the things that used to happen, I mean, that could be a subject for a whole another show, because just from my experience, I was in the Navy almost 8 years. And so I've seen a lot of stuff. And like I was saying to Dr. Johnson at the beginning, is that the first thing when something happens, any type of tragedy, when someone was murdered, killed, suicide, accident, whatever, the first thing they do is make sure that everybody on the ship clams up. Nobody is allowed to talk. They have one spokesman, and no one can talk to the people.
I tell you, I mean, I spent 6 years in the United States Army, but, and I started thinking about this because when I was in there, I remember this newbie, this girl, I can't remember where she was from. She was young, 18, 19 years old, and the sergeant first class, she was working in a supply clerk with this sergeant first class, been in there over 20 years, and this dude was intimidating her and, sexually assaulting her, and she didn't tell anybody. And then when she finally did tell it, all they did was bust this guy down to an E1. He should have been in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm like, is the military, I mean, I understand, you got the military code of justice, whatnot, but still, don't the United States civil laws still apply? Come on.
No. The only time that applies, Scotty, is if like, for instance, I was in the Navy with a guy, he raped a woman off the base, and the civilian court in Virginia took the case over. It was so severe that it wasn't, that they weren't going to turn that guy over to the Navy, and the case was so severe that the civilians had him. So if the only time, if he would have committed that on the base, that would have been a different story.
Yeah,
but right. They have a lot of little intertwined, and a lot of stuff that they do, just like anything else. I mean, some people are taken care of, and some people are sacrificed.
Yep.
And I've seen both. So,
yep.
And it's still about who you know and who you are.
Yeah.
And it's like Dr. Johnson, you touched on it earlier too, about the competence level of the CID and just people. I mean, I'm not trying to denigrate anybody who chooses to go into the military. I'm not trying to say all people who go into the military are dumb and stupid or whatnot. People go in for different reasons. But I do have to say there is a level of competence in some of these positions that's very crucial, especially criminal investigations department. Come on. I mean, it's like they got Keystone Cops.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
No, I was just going to say, my family and I, we talk a lot, and we talk, and we joke about it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We have people whose parents paid for them to get a college education, and they picked a major like phenology and being a person who's an expert in autopsies and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
They've gone to school and been trained, but somebody come to them and say, "Look, I'm your buddy. You messed that autopsy up, or you don't do a good job." Now, we had the guy that we hired here, and that was Dr. Michael Graham. And this man is the coroner of the city of St. Louis. He called me up, and his main objective was making sure he got paid $400 an hour for autopsy. He performs the autopsy, and this man is a coroner. Now, a coroner's job is to say how a person died.
Right.
This man would not make that kind of commitment to say this was a murder, and he's an expert in gunshot wound. That was one of the reasons why we hired him. but he's going to swear for God that he didn't know anything about an M16 rifle. But, you know, that was immaterial. LaVena wasn't shot with an M16 rifle anyway.
Right.
She was shot with a hand revolver.
Well,
so he should have been able. I'm sorry.
Rifles always tear.
Yep.
They always tear. And shotguns explode.
Right.
And you know, so I've carried both of them, and so that's ridiculous. So that every time I even think about that, it just gets more and more ridiculous.
I mean, that's one of the first things they show you in basic training. At least that's what I saw in basic training when we was first being trained on how to handle an M16 rifle. When we first went out to the range, the drill sergeant set a metal ammo can up and shot it and showed the small entry wound and then showed the back of it, and it was totally blown out. No, LaVena was not shot with no M16.
No, that's impossible.
Yeah.
You know,
and what's ironic about the whole thing is I'm sitting here talking to these people. Now, my brother made this statement. We were talking the other day, and I think the word is pedigree. Is that pedigree, the family history? Pedigree?
Yes.
Yeah. My brother said before they came to you with that suicide crap, he said they should have checked out LaVena's pedigree.
Right.
He said because they would have known, first of all, this guy's a veteran. So my guess would be he handled the M16 rifle. Plus, on top of that, they sending me information calling me Dr. Johnson, so they knew I had at least graduated from high school. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But yet and still, you're going to send me the information. Now, my brother said that, and I had a reporter here from A.L.L. last week. And see, when he came, he sit and listened to my wife. And, you know, my wife did all the empathetic stuff, you know, she talked on the phone with our baby and blah, 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 blah. And he sit there and he recorded her. But his thing was, okay, show me what you got. In other words, you've been around here hollering, this was a murder. Show me what you got.
Mm-hmm.
My brother Joseph was over here. I'm going to tell you something, man. When we got through going through the evidence sitting right up here in my house, the man was shocked. He was shocked. He said, they didn't explain this damage to her face? And I told him, I said, the man told me that the gases from the weapon made her face collapse. He said, first of all, that don't even sound logical. I said, being logical ain't the point.
Right.
I showed him the picture. I said, here's a picture. What do you see? He said, oh, my God, her face all swollen up. Yeah, for being hit in the face with her own weapon. Then, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be honest with you. I showed him that picture, that vaginal area, and I said, tell me what you see. Man, it's damaged pretty bad. And he said, and it's swollen. I said, do you see that substance that's in her? He said, yeah. I said, what did you think that is? I have no idea. So my brother said, it's lath that they used in concrete to make it hard. He said they poured it in her, and it hardened. He said, and she was dead when they did it. So they did it to destroy DNA evidence. So he turned it upside down so he couldn't look at it. You know what I did? I turned it right side up and showed it to him again. No, you're going to look at this. This is my baby's vaginal area, and you see what they did to her. You came here saying you're a reporter. Now, here it is, you know. That man, he sat here, man, he shook his head. He said, man, I am so sorry about this. He said, I wasn't expecting all this. I said, yeah, I didn't think you would. And see, we done broke this thing down, man. We done looked at it from every aspect, the wound, the mouth, the body, everything. And everything, man, says this was a horrible, horrible death that my daughter went through. And he was shocked, man, because people think you be looking at stuff and it's just going to be controversial, you know. But this stuff ain't, man. And he was shocked, man. So he says, I wasn't expecting this. I told him, yeah, I didn't think so. Then he asked me a dumb question. He said, you keep this stuff in your house? like that.
Wow.
I said, hell no. I said, the press got it, Congress got it, my attorneys got it. I said, I'll tell you what I do, man. Anybody that say they want to see it, I send it to them. He said, you're kidding me. I said, hell yeah. I said, my daughter's stuff is all over in Europe. You know? I said, no, it ain't. Yeah, I got it at home, but I got a whole lot of other people that's got it too. And he really was adamant about that CD, man. He said, how did you get that CD? Because we had color pictures on it.
Mm-hmm.
See, he's trying to see, and that's what Congress told me this. They said, you got information that you shouldn't have gotten. And I'm thinking, how in the hell are you going to tell me that? And I'm trying to find out what happened to my daughter.
Right.
You had to sue, though, for it under the Freedom of Information Act.
That is correct.
Right, because it's more important for them. And that's what I kind of wanted to say. I kind of wanted to say this for a hot second. And by my experience with people in the military is that they hamstring people lots of times that want to do the right thing, and they got all this, like Scotty mentioned, the Uniform Code of Military Justice and all these rules and regulations that they try to strangle people with when it's about doing something that would defend someone. But when it comes to prosecuting somebody, they open the door full blast. So that's how they operate, and they're always trying to save. They're always trying to save their face, and because they do the most. Like I said, the military in general, the Army, whether it be the Army, the Navy, the Marines, whoever, they all have the same pattern. They stick to something that they know is dumb.
Yeah.
You know, because nobody in their right mind would believe the story that they've concocted, but they still going to stick to it. Because they're the military. Yeah.
And their whole thing is, they could see if they were smart, they could handle this stuff differently. You know, they could have came to me if they really wanted to see how I was going to react. They could have said something like this: our preliminary finding is that this is a suicide. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Now, preliminary means, well, we just looked at it, and that's what it looked like. Now, they would have saw or would have seen that I was in the news media the next day calling them liars. So they should have known then that it was getting ready to be an issue. They could have came back at any time, man, because you know one thing I did, and if you go back and you look at my earlier interviews, I never said this was a cover-up. The news media asked me, do you think this was a cover-up? I would always bring the subject all the way back to my daughter. But after it got to a point, man, where I saw that they actually weren't going to open this back up and do the right thing, I told them, no, this is not a cover-up. This is a conspiracy because it's got a lot of people involved. So it's gone past cover-up. You understand? And you start talking about it up at the Pentagon, it's not cover-up. It was cover-up when it was just Army. But when they went to the Pentagon and they turned it down, then that means it's different now.
Dr. Jones, let me ask you this. You think that this could be tied into, let's say, a war crime? Because she was the first lady from Missouri to get killed in the Iraqi war. And albeit under mysterious circumstances, not necessarily so mysterious as the fact that nobody will come forward and just tell the truth. So you think this could be tied to, let's say they brought up Donald Rumsfeld for charges of being a war criminal. Do you think that they could tie this to him, the death of your daughter?
He was the one that came to my house and said, he sent a messenger to my house. That guy said it came from the Secretary of Defense. You know who the Secretary of Defense was at the time? Donald Rumsfeld. Congressman Clay wrote him a letter. I got a copy of it. He said, look, you need to relook at this because this girl came from a strong family. She was an honor roll student. She seemed to be a real strong person, and these people just don't jump up and commit suicide. Now, Clay didn't give me the copy that he sent him, but they read it to me over the phone. And Donald Rumsfeld said the young woman committed suicide. There are witnesses. My condolences to the family. So he sat there and lied to Congress because there were no witnesses.
Right.
I have to. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I have to jump off the line, but I do want to say this though. I do plan on contacting. Like, if you Google LaVena Johnson's name, it's a lot of stories in Google. I mean, it's probably hundreds of pages of articles written about LaVena Johnson, but it's all by the alternative media. It's all by non-corporate owned media. So I do plan on contacting, trying to build a coalition with those, get in touch with some of those YouTube stars, you know, like they just now, I mean, don't discount the power of the internet. Like this one guy who's the Obama imitator was just on YouTube, you know, and after he did this little thing about Obama, now he on mainstream TV. You know, they did that thing on YouTube about Troy Davis. The Young Turks, they pretty popular. It's a lot of people that have combined millions of viewers. So I am going to try to build a coalition with those groups on YouTube and with the alternative media and do exactly what we talked about, electronic week of protest. You know, that's what my plans are. And so I just wanted to say that, and you know, you're a strong man. Stay strong, Dr. Johnson. And anything you need from me or anything you need to disseminate, we will get it out through the Black Talk Radio Network. And I'm going to say good night to everybody.
Hey, Scotty, before you leave, listen, I want to make sure, you asked me something last time, and I want to make sure. I told you that Colonel Ann Wright had talked to the Black Caucus about my daughter.
Yeah.
You said you want. Do you want who that person was? Did you ask me that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm gonna email it to you.
Okay. Oh, and if you would, I would also like to try to talk to Colonel Wright. It's Colonel Wright, Ann Wright. Yeah, correct. If you can forward her my contact information or give me hers, because I want to do an interview with her about this new database, but also at the same time use that as an opportunity to, you know, keep bringing LaVena's case up.
Okay, I'm going to give you that information.
All right, thank you, and y'all have a good night.
All right.
What's the website?
Okay.
The information that I've been working on for LaVena Johnson is LaVenaJohnson.ning.com, LaVenaJohnson.ning.com, and she also has a Twitter account, which is twitter.com/LaVena Johnson.
Well, thank you, Brother Scotty, for your service and for your dedication to justice.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Scotty. I really appreciate you, man, for real.
No problem, no problem. You're welcome. Y'all have a good night.
Okay.
Closing out, I guess we would like to wind down that time. Dr. Johnson, do you have any words or parting words you'd like to leave? First, let me ask you, what do you want to come out of this case, you know, fighting for your daughter? What do you want from the government, from the military?
Okay. Basically, this is basically what we want. First of all, we want them to clear my daughter's reputation up, because they got it on their record as a suicide, in lieu of the fact that the evidence says this was a murder. So they got to clean that up. They got to clean her reputation up. Secondly, she was murdered by one of their, you know, officers, and they know that, and I think they know I know it. My question is, why are you protecting a cold-blooded murderer? So they need to give that person up. In addition to that, Congress needs to open up hearings, or either they need to assign some kind of commission, like the Kerner Commission when they did the riots, remember that? Mm-hmm. And investigate all these suspicious deaths, and then in addition to that, there needs to be some changes. And if it were left up to me, the Army wouldn't have the responsibility of investigating themselves.
You can say that again.
Yeah, it needs to be an independent agency that does the investigations, and all this CID reporting directly to the general and all that stuff, that don't mean diddly squat, because it's all still military. In addition to that, there needs to be something done for them to start respecting women in the military. It's going to be a co-ed service. These good old boys with this negative attitude and treating women like second-class citizens and treating blacks like second-class citizens. This is the 21st century, and it's time for all of that to change. And so if you ask me what I want in terms of for LaVena, I want her reputation cleared up. I want the people who did it brought to justice. I need Congress to investigate these other deaths, and some changes need to be made. Now, as far as asking what the public can do, Scotty kind of touched on it. We need people to write their Congress people, email their Congress people, tell them, look, go on the website and look at this information, because Congress already knows anyway. They're not going to tell me that the House Armed Services Committee don't know what happened to LaVena, because they do. So people need to email their Congress people. Scotty was touching on Oprah and all these people. We need to get Basin and all these people involved in this. They jumped all over Genesis 6.
Right.
That was, and understand something, no offense, but those were some dudes that were fighting in school, you know, and the justice system overstepped their boundaries in the puny system, in punishing them. My daughter was serving her country, trying to do something good. And you mean to tell me she can't get people to be concerned? And I had a white retired major to tell me the black community should be outraged about this. I'm still waiting to see that happen. That's the bottom line.
Yes, sir. But I'll tell you one thing: the seeds you have planted, and your passion and your commitment is very contagious. And I have no doubt that the community will be, informed, and they will become enraged. Because I'll tell you something about the Genesis 6. A lot of people don't know is that it took a local Louisiana radio personality to keep on reporting about this, reporting the case. His name was that I met and talked to before. He was doing this for months. He was called down in the wilderness, but eventually people came and they took over from there.
Okay.
But never doubt the power of an individual to affect change. And like what you're doing is very important. So I just want you to stay encouraged and don't be discouraged.
Oh, I am.
And change is coming. And I want to thank you for your service as well as your daughter's service and your family service to our country and beyond. Because, like you said, this is very disturbing. Like what Dr. King said in his last speech about stopping to help the man on the Jericho Road. It's not about what's going to happen to me, but what's going to happen to him.
Right.
What's going to happen to us if we don't stop
the
found justice for Sister LaVena Johnson.
Yeah.
And the others.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Right. Thank you, Brother Ron. Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.